Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It is a somewhat wacky installment of League on Lock with the LCS, the LEC canceled, didn't even happen at all on the weekend. All that's going on right now is the LPL, and much like other places around the entire planet, we're working from home, which means we will not be in the League on Lock studios for probably at least the next couple of weeks, but that doesn't mean that the content train will end. We'll still be providing some videos, either highlights from whatever league happens to be going on, or some, countdowns, top 10s, top 5s, and maybe you'll even be lucky enough to get to see my webcam video, which is going to be the absolute highest quality. But for today, we're talking a little bit of LPL power rankings, and it's going to be difficult to be fitting in power rankings into any given week in China because there's games 7 days out of 7, and with that, we're doing week 2, but week 3 has already started, which means some of the records for some of these squads are a game, in some cases even 2 games ahead of other squads in the league just because they've played more games or they have already started week 3 action. And we're just going to go 10-1 because 17 teams is too damn many, but we will give a quick shout out to one of the squads just outside of the top 10, and they moved 8 spots down. We had them in the top 3 when we did week 1 rankings way back in January, and that is BLG. They lost 3 series in a row with some questionable drafts. They went all the way from number 3 to number 11, just outside the top 10, but 10-6 for week 2 in the LPL starts off with Suning, who climbed up a whole bunch, 6 spots in fact, to get into the top 10. They were right around the bottom, second worst team after week 1, but now they have a couple of wins to their name, and some moderately impressive victories. Angel still looks like he's a pretty legit player, and one of the teams that BLG dropped the game to was Suning, and they also took down EDG, who, of course, they are dealing with plenty of roster issues, with some players still being in quarantine and coaching staff as well, but Suning up 6 spots to number 10. TES, a disaster of week 2, a couple of 0-2s in both series against RNG, and the bigger surprise and bigger disappointment was definitely their loss to LGD. That's really an unforgivable loss for this squad, even with the new bot lane, and Karsa, he's been playing decently well, but Knight actually had an uncharacteristically poor performance against LGD, so TES down 5 spots. Not quite as much as BLG because they only lost 2 instead of 3, but definitely outside of the top 5 for now. LNG move up a couple of spots just because, well, they look better. They got another win against BLG, and really, if you're winning series, it's hard to put even TES ahead of you because in their losses, TES really did not look impressive whatsoever, did not look like the spring title contenders that we were expecting. So LNG moves up a couple of spots, and the biggest move, BLG had the biggest drop. The biggest climb was OMG, the only team to go 3-0 in week 2, and really that is cheating a little bit because we're talking somewhat about week 3 as well. But OMG up 7 spots. We were absolutely expecting this squad to be, well, terrible and not even close to getting onto playoffs. Still don't think this is going to be a playoff team come the end of the spring split, but SMLZ had some much better performances towards the latter half of week 2. They got their wins, some impressive wins, a 2-0 against Rogue Warrior, which of course is not saying all that much, but they even had a competitive series against RNG, which, by the way, completely contradicts what I said earlier. They did not go 3-0. They did drop a series to RNG, but they were incredibly competitive in that set. So a lot of positives from OMG. Icon, some games he's inting, and some games he's going 13-1 on Zoe. So him and SMLZ are clearly the key players for this squad, and Icon is just incredibly inconsistent. But hey, OMG shutting up all the haters like myself, climbing up to number 7 for the week 2 rankings. EDG moves down a spot. They had that win they had that win where they looked impressive with Scout. I mean, Scout being Scout, and it's really hard to actually rate this team when you're talking about like what are we actually going to see with the roster, because they don't have that full roster. They looked good against eStar in their 2-0 win against them, but that was really, I'm counting that more as eStar completely underperforming in the draft phase and actually on the Rift. That is not the same team we've seen in their 5 other series, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But EDG, they look good there. Then they get 2-0'd by Suning also. It's really hard to rank them definitely in the top 5. Honestly, 6th is probably being generous, and that's because Hope still looks really good. The core 3 that are the starters that are currently playing still look really good for EDG. The only problem is the rest of that roster might not be coming back for the spring split. Top 5, very different from what we saw in week 1, and that starts with the defending LPL and world champions FPX. We made a huge deal about it in week 1 when they started 0-2, but now they climb back. They go 2-0 this week. They move up 3 spots back into the top 5. They handed JDG their only loss on the split, which is really the big reason that they're climbing up, and also 2-0'd Dominus eSports, which, quite frankly, they have underwhelmed to what we were expecting out of them coming into the split. So FPX, main reason they're climbing is that series win against JDG, and turns out FPX, Do and B can play Assassins too, 10-1 on the Kassadin. So yes, they're still contenders to win a spring title, and so are RNG, because they are year in and year out. XLB Zhao Longbai has lived up to the hype absolutely so far. Betty has done a more than admirable job filling in for Uzi, so much so that people, myself included, are legitimately questioning, should Betty continue to start even when Uzi is healthy / out of quarantine, able to join the team whenever, because Betty is just rolling on all cylinders with this squad. Zhao, who is somewhere in between his MVP level form and whatever we saw at the World Championship in 2019. So RNG climb up a few spots. They had a very solid week. They are actually the ones who went 3-0. Wins against WE, OMG, which is an incredibly impressive, of course, but they also 2-0'd Top at the way back Monday last week to kick off the week. So RNG looking much better. We only saw 1 series out of them in week 1, but they look like legit threats as well. eStar, the most exciting team and exciting surprise that we have so far. 5-1, the most wins in the league, and if they didn't have that complete drop against EDG, where they looked just terrible, to be honest, and not at all what we've seen out of them in all of their other series, you're probably talking about them top 2, maybe even the top spot after week 2, because the sheer domination that they've put forward in some of their wins, in most of their wins, has been incredible. They've only dropped 4 games, all split, and again, 2 of those are coming at the hands of that EDG series, which was very underwhelming. But Wink, Cryan, and Wei are all absolutely incredible, and Xiao Si, the quote-unquote veteran of this squad, is looking like one of the top supports in the LPL right now. eStar, they play aggressively, but they are coordinated in that aggression. It really does remind you of Griffin when they burst onto the scene, so this team of rookies looks like the real deal. They're number 3 in week 2, and the top 2 spots are pretty much the only thing on this list that remain constant from what we saw in week 1. IG, yes, they struggled mightily to close out against Rogue Warriors. They needed a dramatic ending to come away with the W in that match, but they still, Puff has looked incredible. He's fit seamlessly into that bot lane role. So has Southwind. The Shy and Rookie continue to be 2 of the best solo laners on the planet. So IG, depending on what FPX looks like going forward, IG still are looking like the favorites to win spring right now. And JDG, they did lose their first series, but it was to FPX, who actually look closer to World Championship form. And this is all without Zoom in the top lane because, again, for quarantine reasons, with all the Corona stuff still going on in China to a lesser degree, but He's not with the team right now. It's 705 in the top lane. So without arguably their best player, JDG continued to look like one of the top teams in the LPL. That's 10-1 for week 2 in the LPL. We'll try and get these out every week in China, depending on what's going on the rest of the regions around the globe. But even if we're not in the studios, we're going to have plenty of content coming your way.